So yesterday on the open, we put in the high at 289 on the SPYs. There's really no volatility. We did drop to 288 midday. Never got back above 288.5, but that is less than 0.5% range intraday. It looks like we are set up to test the support area from the last few days. I would think close up here would get things moving to the upside. Close below 287 would be bearish. We talked about this yesterday. The next downside potential from there is if we had closes below 287 would be into here. And that's because the volatility is so suppressed. You know, you have to, when you're coming up with targets, the same thing applies to the market as individual stocks. And this is the fundamental reason why we look at in-play stocks on a daily basis, is we want more volatility to give us more upside in our trades, and at the same time to give us a few more chances. When things are more volatile, you tend to have more opportunities for intraday setups, etc. And so when volatility is suppressed like this in the SPYs, you don't come with, when it moves out of a range, you don't come with big targets over a short period of time. On IWM, so I was just actually talking to this with one of the traders on the desk before the meeting, which is, I know I've talked about this in the morning meeting before over this year. IWM, it's just doesn't have the liquidity of the SPYs, and the larger funds that have started to use this, the way they use the SPYs to kind of hedge on and off positions, put risk on and take risk off, it just creates a lot of outsized moves, intraday, reversals, etc. In the open yesterday, it spiked above this 171.30, 40 resistance, got up to 65 cents. And then the buying was done on the open. It just very quickly went right back down to 170.5. Which is a decent sized move in a short period of time. I think as long as it's holding below 171.30, stay short this, stay short IWM. Let's say alerts at 171.10, 171.20 in this area right here. In a down channel. Downside of flush through 170 and see kind of what happens. All right, so USAT. So USAT filed for an extension on their annual report, 15-day delay. The risk there is that if they don't get filed, and I think it's the NASDAQ, could potentially then delist them. The issue here, though, is I think what the market's probably thinking two things. Number one, they don't get the annual report together and finish the audit committee report. They have that delisting risk. The other thing is, why haven't they finished the internal investigation? Maybe there's something going on there, and there's some risk. And the stock has gone up this year from, well, it had gone up from 9.5 to 16, which is a big move. What is that, 60, 70%? Yeah, so the internal investigation, what I'm trying to say to you was no news. It's not new news, Mikhail. So the fact that they haven't wrapped it up yet, I think, is more of the concern than the investigation itself, which was known. But it is coming back down to where it broke out from in May. And so if it bounces there, this is kind of the first obvious bounce area. Lumi does 500,000 shares. When it broke out above $12 back in the spring, it did over 5 million. So it should do a few million shares today, I would think. So I have 10 as support in the sheet. It almost got there in the pre-market. What you'd want to see is it hold down here. And then for a bigger bounce, you'd want to see it actually get back above 11 and start consolidating near this pre-market resistance, and then a break to the upside. It's very possible that it could shake off a large part of this down move, especially if the company comes out and says we're wrapping up the report shortly. NTNX, large government contract. It's been in a range. You can see this pretty clearly on the 30-minute. So it had this huge move from 30 up to the mid-50s, and then after that it established a range between around 48 and a half, let's say 48 and a half, 50 is support, and the top of the range wasn't as clean. It was the bottom of the range was cleaner. So it did spike above there to mid-60s, came back to the bottom of the range, tested it a couple times, didn't quite make a new high here, or didn't quite touch the high. This has been going on since March, so for 6 months. This is a 6-month time period. They just got a big government contract. It just had bounced off of the $50 a couple of days ago. This one looks interesting to me for a move back up. Maybe not today, but in the near future, back up to $60. So as long as it's above 53, we won't have a long bias. Say it holds here and takes out the pre-market high, play it for move to 56. So I put the two resistance on the sheet, 56, 57, 50. Maybe you even get a move to 56 right in the open, pulls in, holds $55, consolidates, and then you look for a second leg to 57.50. If it closes near the high today, it's a swing trade. The next one is YumC. This is the Yum Brands in China, the spin-off from Yum. Somebody was looking to acquire them. That's over now. So it's gapping down. They're no longer interested in acquiring them. So they had rejected the bid, and plus now China's been really a bloodbath in the stock market this year. I'm not sure what the Shanghai's down now. It might be down like 25% or something like that. It's down a lot. Even as we've looked for bounces in BABA the last couple of days, it continues to move down towards the next long-term support. So on one hand, it's gapping down to the recent low. On the other hand, Chinese names that have been going to recent lows have been going through them. So I had 32 on the sheet. We're almost there. The next support, 30.50. It's done good volume. It's done over 10% of the daily volume already. So it's sold off from 33 so far in the pre-market. What do we have on there? So I have 33.70 to 34. That's kind of a spot. I guess my thought was if it spiked up here, this would be a spot that I'd look for failure and a rollover, maybe back down to here. Could get a situation like BABA yesterday where it bounces off a level a bunch of times. First bounce is big, second bounce is shallower, and then it just eventually breaks and goes down a couple more dollars, which would be the next support area. So happy to play it on the short side. I prefer to use some dip buyers right on the open to push it up a little bit before playing it on the short side. And then obviously if it holds 32, you certainly can play it on the long side from 32. It's down a lot. Sano. So numbers were not good. Guidance wasn't good. It's been a good trading stock since the IPO. Obviously, day 1 and 2 were solid longs, went up about 50% from the IPO price, failed. When it got back down below that key 22 level, I don't think it's a coincidence. It wasn't a coincidence that it bounced up to 22 a couple of weeks ago and failed there. You can see here we cite day 2 where it failed. 16.5, pretty good support. Did I put that on the sheet? Yes, I did. So I put this as the support area right here, kind of where it bottomed. You got some people trapped who bought it in front of earnings. Well, it's only 1 day of buying, right? It's pretty good volume though. So those people are going to probably want out. I put 19 on the sheet, but really is this area right here, 18.5 to 19. Where if it fails and then gets back down below 18.5, it come all the way into support from a couple of weeks ago. If for some reason it shakes this off, what that would look like is it kind of holding above 19. And then what do I have for the next 20? I'd be very surprised if it was able to do much more than bounce to the high 19s to this area here. But it's more likely that it would fail here at 19, maybe overshoot it right on the open a little bit, and then get back below 1850 and come in. So that's that. And then BABA, which I just referenced a second ago, is gapping lower, probably with China overnight. Got to go back like a year ago to when it, let's see. So remember, this was the beginning of the move to 200. It was on earnings last June. You can see here is probably this gap was probably this. Well, that's August, so that can't be it. They report in September. Maybe they reported early. But we filled this gap here yesterday. That's why we looked for the bounce at 158. That was a fill of this gap. It worked the first 4 times. It took it out, and then it came off a couple more dollars. And now it's coming into this next major long-term support, which is around 151, 152. It's been a couple of weeks there. It did gap below that one day, but immediately got bought up and then went kind of straight up to the top of this range. So, worst case scenario, I think I talked about 150 yesterday being a great long-term buy. I do think if you buy here 150 6 months out, probably be up a lot of money. Worst case scenario is if China drops another 5% or something like that, Shanghai Exchange, I guess it could come all the way back down into the low 140s. But you got to assume that people are going to buy it into the low 150s here. So. Usually it makes its big moves right in the open. So you'd get your flush on the open, like $1 below here, $1.50 below here, something like that. And then what you'd want to see is a hard up move and then a very shallow pullback. And then that would be kind of different price action than what we've seen recently, which is we've seen the big up moves right on the open. We just haven't seen the shallow pullbacks. Shallow pullback takes out the morning high, and then you just basically stay long until it moves back into this area here. And you kind of see if it closes above 156, you go out long it, see if it can here. Again, it's $30 below where it was after they reported really good earnings, like a week or 2 ago. So it has a ton of bounce potential. Here was the earnings right here. On the earnings, it got up as high as 150.85 or so. Tesla. So Tesla had really good upside follow-through yesterday. In the afternoon, they squeezed it pretty much where it kind of broke down from a few days ago. And then it got a downgrade this morning. So it's a $30+ bounce from the low on Friday. It's already starting to show bids here in the 278 area. So I would say 278 to 276 is what I'd be looking at for support this morning. And if it supports there and then starts to hold above 280, would be pretty bullish for the stock. Obviously, it'd move that side of the downtrend. And then a close above yesterday's high would be very bullish about it. Very bullish for it. That's it. As I said yesterday, this is going to be the slowest probably week of the year. Next week could be really slow as well. So be patient, spend some time, check out the radar at 10 o'clock.